Keep the circle strong. Your duty to report acts of abuse, neglect, exploitation, and interpersonal violence to a child. Table of Contents. Introduction. Keeping the circle strong. Saskatchewan and Canada have laws to protect children. These laws are meant to prevent child abuse and neglect as well as to protect them from exposure to abusive situations. Child abuse and neglect are health issues. Abuse and neglect increase risk of emotional, behavioral, academic, social and physical health problems over the lifespan. Battle River Treaty 6 Health Center has developed a policy on reporting that is available on the company website. This slide presentation explains your role further. Sharing information to protect children is not only encouraged. It is required by law. Reluctance to report and share information can contribute to continued abuse, and even the death of a child. Who is a child? Child protection laws, the Child and Family Services Act, apply to children under the age of 16 and in special circumstances, youth aged 16 and 17. The Emergency Protection of Victims of Child Sexual Abuse and Exploitation Act applies to children and youth under the age of 18. The Criminal Code of Canada applies to criminal offences perpetrated against children under the age of 18. Section 10 of the Child and Family Services Act does make provision for services to 16 and 17-year-olds who are in need of care and supervision, providing, A, there is no parent willing to assume the responsibility for that person, or, B, the person cannot be re-established with his or her family. In these cases, Child and Family Services agencies can sign an agreement with the youth to provide residential and/or financial assistance to them. Family services agencies offer services to the families to support and preserve the family while still protecting the child, whenever it is appropriate. Risk to the child or children is considered when planning intervention services which are to be designed to cause the least disruption to the family while protecting the child. Sometimes children must be removed from the home for their own safety. Placement with a safe family member is preferable. Kanawamic Child and Family Services, BTC Human Services Corporation, and the Ministry of Social Services are local agencies that provide child protection services to the communities that Battle River Treaty 6 Health serves. They work with the RCMP when need be, to administer the Provincial Child and Family Services Act. The Child and Family Services Act requires every person who has reasonable suspicion to believe that a child may be in need of protection to report the information to a child protection worker from a First Nations Child and Family Services agency, the Ministry of Social Services, or a police officer. Reports should be made immediately. In case of emergency, call 911. We all have a duty to report. Reporting acts or suspicion of child abuse and neglect, or exposure to abusive situations is a legal requirement under Section 12 of the Provincial Child and Family Services Act as well as Section 4 of the Provincial Emergency Protection of Victims of Child Sexual Abuse and Exploitation Act. Failure to report suspicions of child abuse may result in a civil claim or professional discipline. You can also be charged with an offense, and if found guilty receive a fine of up to $25,000 or a jail term of up to 24 months or both. It is a personal duty to report and cannot be delegated to someone else. The duty to report applies in spite of any claim of confidentiality or professional privilege, other than solicitor/client privilege or Crown privilege. Even if you believe someone else is reporting the situation, you still have a duty to report. You have an ongoing duty to report child abuse, even if you know a report has already been made about a child. You must make a further report if there is additional reasonable suspicion that the child is or may be at risk of abuse. All incidents must be reported. Source: Saskatchewan Child Abuse Protocol 2014. If in doubt of whether your suspicions are reasonable, you can talk the matter over with a child protection worker or police officer. Child protection workers investigate to determine if a child is in need of protection. Police officers investigate to determine if a criminal offense has been committed. It is not your duty to investigate. It is your duty to report. Reports made to a child protection agency or to the police are confidential, but if the matter goes to court and your testimony is needed, you can be summoned to the court hearing or procedure. If your suspicions turn out to be unfounded, the law protects you as long as your belief was reasonable and your intent in making a report was not malicious. Include in your report your name, contact information and relationship to the child. The child's details. Example: name, age, gender, location. Any safety concerns you are aware of. Information about the situation. Include any information you have on the family, caregivers, alleged offenders, other children who may be at risk or affected, and any other relevant information. Remember, it is not your duty to investigate. It is your duty to report. Do not quiz a child or ask leading questions. Notify your supervisor of your report, to discuss safety and legal issues. Who to call: community jurisdiction.